Hello, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Ramadan FM on 102.5 FM. This is Kirk Master, and I'll be hosting today's show, a current affairs show, but we're having a bit of politics in here. I've been joined by some of my colleagues and some community members and some community leaders and elected members, so it should be an interesting show. I was hoping to have some males here, but I've got all ladies in the room with me, or three women, sorry. Very experienced from a community perspective, given huge amounts to Leicester over their time. And I'm looking forward to them sharing your experiences with you. Today's show was supposed to be about politics in the round, but obviously some people will know, some won't, that I'm an elected member and a Labour Party representative, but it's not going to be all about Labour today. This is more about community and the democracy of politics and how young people can be involved and what to expect and how you can make changes in your communities, and that's what these people are here for today to share with you. So I'll let them introduce themselves before we go any further. We start with you, Manjula.
I'm Manjula Sood. I'm a former councillor. I live locally here. First, and I wish everybody Ramadan Kareem and best wishes for happy Ramadan, and may you have good prosperity and good future.
And I'm sure everybody knows Manjula, who's been on the radio station for as far as I can remember, and has been a good advocate for our community. So welcome, Manjula. Sue?
Hello, I'm Sue Hunter, Councillor Sue Hunter. I represent the Evington ward, and I was before I was a councillor, I worked for Leicester City Council and was a council officer for 30 years.
Wow, you don't look old enough.
Oh, thank you.
And finally, but last but not least, Ruma.
Oh, hi, Ramadan Kareem to all the friends listening. My name's Ruma Ali. I've lived in Leicester all my life, and I also worked for Leicester City Council for 12 years. I'm a newly elected councillor for the ward of Humberston and Hamilton.
Brilliant, thank you and welcome, and thank you for coming as well and giving up your time. So I'm going to go straight in and ask one simple question that you can just all answer in, not in turns, but as you go. Why did you want to get involved in helping the community, Manjula? You've been here a long time. You're probably the most experienced out of all of us, and you've given a huge amount to the many communities across Leicester. Why did you want to give something back?
And I arrived here, Kirk, in 1970, December 1970. The things were not as good as they are now currently. And I wanted to do a job because my husband, he didn't have that big good job, so we needed money. And my first house was in Sparkenhouse Street, 66, right on the top, no heating, no carpets, nothing. And whenever I went for jobs like Woolworth, Lucy's, the job they offered me was stacking the shelves. It's not that I was against that, but I thought just because I'm not of right caliber in India, I was working for Johns Hopkins University, Baltimore, coming here. And I said, God, is this England? So then I went to Leicester Uni to do a further course. And they said, we need some female primary school teachers. So I was offered the teacher training. And when I started my job, 1st January 73, that was the year when, we had Uganda Asians who came, people from Malawi, they came and they faced so much discrimination and racism. The establishments were not ready. Host communities were very good. They welcomed people here. But on the other hand, parents they were new to the city, they were anxious. So then I thought, if our people, our communities were involved in the politics in those countries, the politicians there would have thought 10 times to kick them out. So I came home, I told my husband, you go into politics. He said, why? I said, because if you are not in politics, when they make policies, there is no representation, no voice. So 82, I really persuaded him to go into politics.
And he was one of the first
Asian.
in the city.
That time it was county council, no?
Okay, yeah.
Because Leicester wasn't a unitary status that time.
So it was the county.
So he worked very hard for all communities. Through school, I saw the communities, how they were struggling.
Yeah.
The families, they left behind mansions and all their assets, and coming here and they came with dreams, but their dreams were not fulfilled that time. They had young families, young children. So I could understand their pain. and what they were going through. Because when I came here, I faced those. So that's why I was determined to give my life to communities, to help them in whatever way I said, if my parents have given me education, God has helped me, I should help them. And then I fought for many things. I can give you one example. Children, when they were mums who never worked, they went to work.
Yeah.
And Imperial typewriter, they had a lot of these industrial units. And mums in the evening, they used to come with their hands, blue color denim, and CMT, like penny overlocking. So there was they faced a lot of discrimination. And these children, they were given, to eat at dinner time, diced carrots, peas, to pick them up.
Yeah.
And they were forced to have forks and knives. And my head teacher said, do in Rome as Romans do. I said, when you were ruling the world, nobody asked you to do what a bizarre statement.
Wow.
I defied her. I went and I bought teaspoons, and I used to feed the children myself. And every challenge made me determined that I am going to do.
So you've set the way for a lot of the community. I think for me anyway, in my time of being in and around the council, you've definitely helped me personally. I don't know about you, Sue or Rima.
Yes. I was about to say that when I very first, I'll talk about when I very first became a councillor, and the very first person that welcomed me was Manjula. And she made me feel very, very welcome. In saying that, when I started working for the community, again, it was in the 1970s, and it was the start of the riots.
Wow.
And I was involved in the riots, not taking part, but I was involved in the riots.
In a nice way, a recovery kind of way. Yeah.
And but before that, I worked in law, and that's where I was steering towards. I wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay.
And I did a lot of studying and what have you. But then the like I say, the riots came about in Leicester, and I just saw a lot of injustice, a hell of a lot of injustice, especially towards people like myself and people of colour. And so I got involved, and that was when it was the uprising of many black and Asian people taking adult education, going into adult education and becoming qualified to actually work within the community. And a lot of people did that, and we set up play schemes, and we set up sort of like local interest groups so that we could build on our communities. And that's where I started, from, and I've continued ever since.
So there's been a real journey going on here.
Definitely.
I'm going to pay you a compliment now, Ruma, and I'm going to suggest that you weren't even born in the 70s, were you?
No, I was born in 1988.
Wow.
A long time
so
after 1970.
you are the baby of the crew.
But again, this lady sitting next to me, I was 15, and I remember seeing Manjula in town and approaching her, and she was a part of a charity called Leicester Her Day or Leicester Women's Day, and she said, why don't you get involved with this charity? And that was essentially one of the first jobs I had with this charity. So Manjula had a massive influence in me entering politics, wanting to become a politician. She was one of the first people when I was 15, 16 who I got involved with in charity work, and she has supported me immensely. And she kept saying to me, do it, you need to become, and it was that. And also my own background, I'm from the Bangladeshi community, and women in particular in my community, you don't see a lot of role models, you don't see, we don't really have the opportunities that other women from other communities have. And actually, I was the first ever Bangladeshi woman to be selected in the history of Leicester. I was the first one selected, and actually I was first one selected, and then another one was selected after me.
My mistake.
But I was the first one selected, and I think we've come a long way now. But we see the things that are good now. Are the challenges that we face. So for example, these anti-bullying campaigns that we have in schools, I was bullied immensely for being skinny, for eating curry, these kind of things. You know, I was a minority in my school. When I went to school 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I was the only one. Now, in Leicester, all the schools are diverse. In fact, white children are the minority. So we were bullied a lot. And now it gives me great privilege to be a counsellor and to be able to work with schools and work on anti-bullying campaign and work with teachers.
No, that's really good. So just on the kind of you being involved in community work and etc., and then moving on to becoming kind of a political environment, how difficult was that for you as a young person? Because I know my own experience, but it'd be nice to hear from a female from the BAME community as well, how difficult that was. Because for me personally, I think we need more young people to get involved.
I think everything you want to do, every career you want to aspire to, it is hard. You have to work very hard. And, you know, I started working at the age of 16 and I studied while I worked.
Okay.
I studied while I raised children. So for me, it was difficult because I was a single parent and I was raising children and going to university and working. So it was difficult for me, but at the same time, I never gave up. I kind of, you know...
You knew what you wanted to achieve.
In 2010, when it didn't happen, I thought, I'm gonna study psychology, so I did. In 2015, again, when it didn't happen, I thought, I'm gonna study politics. So now in 2019, it did happen, but I don't regret anything because I'm now more intelligent, I have more knowledge, I have more experience, I've got a very long, at such a young age, I've got a 12-year career in the council. I don't know many people that can say that.
That's really good. That's really good. So for you, Sue, as well, you're from the BAME community, you're from an ethnic minority. You know, we've now got more Afro-Caribbean members on the council. You know, what was your motivation for coming into this?
Into politics? Yeah. Well, my motivation to come into politics was I was going to, I took early retirement and and that really did worry me coming out of work and looking at how things were going, such like children's services, young people's services. And I thought, I've still got to keep my hand in somewhere, you know, rather than just sit back and relax. That was no chance. And I was approached and spoke about becoming a counsellor, and I thought, well, that would be a way of keeping my hand in and perhaps making sure something gets done for the communities, and that's why I did. I became a counsellor, and I still class myself more of a community leader rather than a counsellor.
And I like that. I think that's really important. I think that's really important.
And I find it really difficult when people sort of like, hello counsellor, da, 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 da. I'm more of a person that, hi Sue, how's things going, and this, that and the other. And I would sooner talk to people about their issues and what's happening and what things they're facing, rather than them actually saying, you know, I'm a counsellor now. That's not the big thing for me. Being a counsellor has just enabled me to continue my work within the community.
With a different badge.
Yes, exactly.
Same person, different badge.
Same everything,
That's how I like to interpret it as well. I don't like to feel that I've changed. And in fact, one of the things I kind of said to myself was, when I change as a person, then that's it for me.
Definitely.
I've gone too far.
Definitely.
And now my motivation or the motives of me doing these things may have changed. And if I've changed as a personality and a person through this, and I don't mean my learning experience or my expertise in an area or whatever, I just mean me, then I think I've gone too far.
Changes. And I think that for a lot of people, don't get me wrong, I really like the fact that I can get things done. And with when you do have that counsellor badge, it's really nice to say, right, okay, let me see what I can do. and something actually gets done because you are a
Yeah,
councillor.
absolutely.
That really fills me with a lot of joy.
And that's why
And I have to say that.
That's why these kind of programs are important, so we can tell the community that they need to be involved.
Of course.
And we're just normal people. We're not special people. We're normal people. We've worked hard. We've tried to educate ourselves. We've done community work. There's 1,000 other people out there that could do what we're doing, but people need to get involved, because the more people that are involved in the democratic process of things, the more we can get done. And that's what this kind of program, and by bringing you on, I'm trying to get over to the community. Get involved, have an influence, have an impact, and try and make change.
But young people need to get
Young
involved.
people, yes.
Young people. I mean, what filled me with a lot of joy when I first became a councillor, the very first time, 4 years ago, when we had it was a general election plus local election plus city mayor. It was everything.
Yeah.
It was the whole shebang. And I'm standing outside, and because I worked very closely with the young children and young people, and a lot of people came down and they said, this is the first time we've ever voted. And the reason why we're voting, Sue, is because of you.
Oh, brilliant.
And that's why we're voting. And I said, well, then you must continue to vote.
Yeah.
And not only that, then you must get involved. And not only that, then you must become councillors. and so it went on from there. And to be quite honest, quite a few more people have joined the Labour Party. And I have to say, the Labour Party.
Well, you can say that. I'm being a bit more biased on this as being on this side of the table. So there's all political parties that you can be involved in, but obviously Leicester does have kind of, well, it's now in the political landscape known as Red Leicester.
Red Leicester, of course.
There's 54 elected positions across the city, and 53 belong to Labour, which is a great achievement for the party.
And over 50% of them are women.
And over 50% of them are women. You're absolutely right. I had the figure written down actually. And what was it for the BAME? There's quite, I think it was 25 are from the BAME community as well. So we've got such a diverse group within the council now, but we need to make things happen. If there was one thing, Manjuli, you'd be proud of, and I know there's many, so I'm not saying there's only one, because I've seen you do a million myself. But if there's one thing that sticks out that you've delivered and been part of over your time, what would you say that was?
To see more of my sisters coming into politics.
Wow. Okay.
When I was elected, I was the fifth female councillor,
Yeah.
and the first one, Berlin was the first one. Then I was from the Asian community, being there, and all cabinet was male. All directors were male. I said, God, are you telling me there aren't any women? So I went to town clerk, and Peter, he was the leader. I said, why can't we bring women? So town clerk, he said, what should we do? I said, why can't you have events where women can come and have a feel that what politics is like? I said, out there like me, I came in tragic circumstances because my late husband died in a meeting.
Yeah.
I said, when I came in by-election, there was no support for me. I was told to find my own way. So I said there should be proper induction, monitoring everything. So every year now I can see every female councillor. I mean, it's nothing against men. I'm very pleased that we've got very good male councillors as well. But to have women.
But you prefer the women. I understand.
Not prefer. I mean, now to see them from representing their different communities.
Equal opportunities.
This is
totally.
why equal opportunities have come. To have women from all different, but there are still some more communities.
Yeah.
We need to see those coming also. Next elections, I want to see. So I said that has given me joy. And not only councillors, even officers, senior positions, being directors. There was not a single female director when I was elected.
Yeah.
Not even on the exact cabinet. Now we call it executive. So there is a tremendous change, and I feel proud. I can sit back that I was.
So that really is a fantastic achievement from your time being involved to where we are now. The number of females that have become elected members and in senior positions within the local authority, that's a big bridge.
Wherever I've seen a gap, when I became the first Asian woman Lord Mayor of Britain, then I thought, why it took 21st century to have a woman from a different background?
Yeah.
Why couldn't we have more women? And these freemen, hereditary freemen, When I had a photograph, I was the only woman. I said, why can't your daughters and sisters have that? They said nobody has bothered.
Okay, we're just going to go into a break and we'll see you on the other side.
Even Virginia.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Ramadan Special on EAVA FM 102.5. It's Kirk Master hosting the show. I've got some esteemed guests with me today. I've got Sue Hunter, I've got Manjula Sood and Ruma Ali. All been part of the community scene for a very long time, and that's what we're here to talk about today. And a bit of politics, but not with political party context in it. Well, I'm going to stay neutral to that. They might splash the odd red around the room, but I'm going to try and stay as neutral as possible. So let's just go back into your point, Manjula, what you was talking about. And one of the things that you mentioned, I can remember you telling me a story that when you was first elected, we have to go and sign this book of declaration that confirms your role as an elected member and etc. etc. I can remember you telling me the story that you're too scared to get into the lift to go up and sign the book, and people had to come and get you and say, no, come on, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And that must have been from where you were then at that point, all those years ago to today, that's a huge shift.
Yes, and this was said, there was no support mechanism. I just went, I was scared to go in. And then the leader has to ring the branch. Where is she? She needs to sign it. And then they came and they said, you have to go through that lift up there. And I was left alone. I didn't even know who chief whip is. When you don't show me the system, who works. And those who helped me were the secretaries.
Yeah.
I was asking them everything how to do. And then they told me what chief whip. But I must say that chief was very good. He said, you come to me. I said, but you should have told me. It can be a very difficult place if you don't have a support, and especially coming in by-election.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when people expect you to deliver, nobody told me that these committees, that all papers were given to me, and I thought I was supposed to attend all those meetings. And when I went, one of my colleagues was very rude to me, and she said, you are not supposed to sit here. Go get out in the public gallery. I said, what is public gallery? So these sort of things. That's why that I cried, because
you just didn't know.
I came in bereavement, and and that's why I thought I have to do something about it.
So what do you think, Reem, as a young person or the youngest of our panel, or are the blockers or the restrictors to young people being involved in democracy and politics at a local and national level? What do you think stops them from being involved?
I think, like Manjula said, fear. I think fear. Once you overcome the fear, and once you believe in yourself that you can do it. It took me 10 years to get here, and these women that I sit in the room with, I had the privilege of working with both of them. Sue Hunter, when she was a manager at children's centres, she treated everyone like they were her next door neighbours. She was so down to earth, so loving to the cleaners, to the assistants, to the receptionists. Manjula, when Manjula's met the Queen, Manjula's been Lord Mayor, but she will never say that. She won't tell you that. If you know, you know. She is so humble and down to earth, and this is a job that I see selfless people doing. You have to be selfless. You have to be kind, no matter how much experience you've got, no matter how many degrees you've got, how many qualifications. Qualifications do not teach you to love people. That comes from your heart and comes from your mind. And if you generally care about people, then nothing can stop you doing this job. It's not easy. It's not hard. For some people, it's very easy. I know people who, I've got a friend who's very young who made her first. She left university, made an application to be an MP. She got selected, and now she's standing as a parliamentary candidate.
Wow.
So for some people it's very easy, and for some people there are struggles. But what I will say is never give up.
We had a telephone call from somebody who was saying that the process here, I don't know if they was referring to Leicester but just within politics, is quite a difficult process to get involved in, being selected as a councillor and etc. etc. And it can be quite daunting if you're new to that world, but I wouldn't say it's a difficult process. You can become a member of a political party, and then you start attending the meetings, and then you start networking, and then the opportunities are created, and etc. etc. And that's how I found the process as well. I don't know if anybody else's experience was where it was kind of a shut door that you just felt you were banging your head against, because I never experienced that.
It's easy to get involved. the difficulty comes when you're trying to prove yourself to actually say that I can do this.
Right. Okay.
And I think that comes in yourself. It has to come within yourself.
Yeah, like what Ruma was
But
saying.
it's very easy to get involved. All you have to do is join a political party,
Any political party.
any political party, and take it from there. And that's your involvement.
Yeah.
That is your involvement.
And they have regular meetings,
Exactly.
and they're all in the
Exactly.
communities, and you can start to be engaged and involved, and etc. So yeah, I think we're quite fortunate. There was another question that came in that politics in this country might be easy to get involved in and have a democratic process, but it's not like that everywhere. And I think that's something we have to value here. We have that
Freedom of
opportunity.
speech.
We have that
of speech,
freedom,
yeah.
and we have that opportunity to get involved. In some parts of the world, you're told, and that's it.
That's true. That's very true.
And that's so that's a fair point.
Yes,
And
it is.
This country, coming into politics, there's not discrimination. Like you said, if people are young people, anybody who are interested involved, they get the platform.
Yeah.
Whereas in many parts of the men around the world, that's not the case. So we don't know where that question came from, but so we should value that in this democracy, everybody gets the opportunity.
And somebody was messaging in as well, Sue, particularly for you, saying, so nice to hear you on the radio. You've done great work for the communities over many years.
Yeah.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
Was it Armani?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's her name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Hiya.
I think we have to be the spokesperson of the communities, what they want. Many people, they will go and vote because they take it very seriously, we have to vote. But when it comes to issues, sometimes people feel lost.
Yes, totally.
Where to go? I know we got now technology. At the city, all local authorities are going online, everything, but still we have got people who cannot access technology and they need help. That's where our role as elected members or community leaders is very, very important.
No, totally agree.
Go out and help people.
We've just had another message, and it says it's very difficult to work with people where the support network is weak, and that's your point, Manjula. As women, we have additional barriers, and we are not treated on equal par to men, so we have to work twice as hard. As a new person coming into an environment, shadowing would be a great mentoring strategy that would help new people coming in and feeling confident. And we do that.
Definitely.
We do that.
I did that. I shadowed Dr. Chowdhury, I shadowed Manjula, I shadowed Peter, I shadowed many of my seniors, Abdul Osman, who's my best friend, Deepak, who's my best friend. I've known them for God knows how long.
Yeah.
So I shadowed them. I was inspired by them. I was always, and it's also important when people say they want to get involved. You don't actually have to join a political party if you're not sure. You can just, if there's a campaign that you're passionate about, so saving general hospitals, saving a library, get involved in that campaign and people will know you for that. There's things that I've done before I was even a councillor. There's things that I've done in the community that people still remember. There's things that Sue's done that people still thank her for, and Manjula. So it is, you can get involved. There's little things, there's charities, there's campaigns, there's lots and lots of things that you can get involved in.
But having that support network there, or that opportunity to shadow and be mentored and
Email
shown
us,
things
yeah.
was invaluable for you to
Of course.
bring yourself to this
Of course,
position
yeah.
today.
But bringing that back, it's not just about shadowing to actually get into politics. It's about shadowing to become a community leader. It doesn't necessarily have to be a councillor. You don't necessarily have to be a worker. It's about actually working within the community and working with communities. And the person that gave me that emailed in, and I know her as Laverne. It was great working with her, and that was a success story for me. Laverne was a success story for me, because she never had the confidence to go to work. She never had the confidence to actually go for an interview.
Wow.
And I worked very hard with her. In fact, I snitched on her to her mum a lot of the time, but she eventually came about and did it. And now she works in a school.
Not only shadowing, in my years of politics, any student who has approached me for interview to discuss any issue, I have always welcomed them to give, to know about the authority, not
Yeah.
only elections, how we work, how we have achieved community.
All of it.
All of it. Any student, and they have come from Cambridge, Leeds, anywhere, they have travelled to Leicester.
Yeah.
Somebody was doing a project on Spinney Hill Park, and she came from Preston.
Wow.
So as I said, giving to promote Leicester, that has been really good. So later on, if they want to go into politics, at least there is some foundation that they've spoken to the politician, that how do we doing things. So this is why we should welcome that and never dismiss that a young person wants to speak to us. We should welcome them.
Absolutely.
And irrespective of party politics, any party they want to join in. But if they want any guidance and support, we should help them so they can feel confident and empower themselves. Yes, we can make a difference. Politics is all about making a difference and being a spokesperson, representative of your community. Like Roma, how many years I've been telling her, you will be a good councillor, come in. I said, don't give up.
Well, we've still got to test that. She's a councillor. We'll see if she's a good one. We'll come back next year and we'll ask that question.
Our prime ministers, many of them have lost their seats, MPs, and they came later on.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to be persistent, keep at it.
And we've just been joined in the room by Rory Palmer, who's our MEP for Europe, for the East Midlands. And he's somebody with a vast background and knowledge of politics, who's been right through the system from elected member to deputy mayor, and still quite young as well. So not looking too bad, Roy, considering the graft you've got.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and welcome.
And salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam. And obviously Rory's joined us today because there's something quite special and big happening this week. We've just come over the local elections and half of us are out on our feet after doing the local elections here in the city, but we've got the Euro elections coming up on Thursday of this week, and we just felt it was a good opportunity for Rory, who's well versed and experienced in this now, having his time over in Europe, to give us a bit of a background about what the European elections are, if people are not sure which parties there are. I know you're Labour candidate, and we're hoping you get through on the ballot as well. We need to get all our supporters out to vote for you. But just to give it some context around the Euros, because a lot of people are not sure or wasn't even aware that the elections are going on, actually.
Yeah, well, of course, these elections were not planned to go ahead. Had Brexit happened on the time frame that the government had set out, these elections wouldn't have been happening. But my view is that it's a good thing they are happening. I want the UK to stay in the European Union. The fact that these elections are happening means we're still in the European Union. So these elections will take place right across the European Union. All 28 member states will vote. In fact, I think we're the only member state that vote on Thursday. The other European nations will vote over the weekend, and we elect 751 members of the European Parliament, 73 from the United Kingdom and 5 from the East Midlands, the region which we elect members of the European Parliament for, of which I'm currently one. And I think these elections are really important this time round for 2 reasons. The first is because, of course, these elections are, as any election is, about electing good people to represent our local communities. And I live here in Leicester, and I'm immensely proud to represent our city of Leicester and all its communities in the European Parliament. I want to continue to be able to do that. I've worked tirelessly in the European Parliament since I took my seat in 2017 when I stepped down from the City Council, where I was proud to be a Labour councillor alongside a fantastic team of councillors, and you've just been hearing from some of those elected members locally. The second reason that these elections are so important this time round relates to why I'm so proud to represent the city of Leicester, because one of the reasons I'm so proud to represent Leicester in the European Parliament is because I can speak, and I do speak, about our diversity, about the harmony we have across all our communities, about the fact that we celebrate together in Leicester, we celebrate our festivals together, but also in times of need we stand shoulder to shoulder across our communities in that spirit of solidarity and cooperation and friendship. In these elections, there are those who want to divide us, who want to draw divisions between our different communities. And I'm not going to make partisan points on the radio this evening, but let me be clear, the party I represent, I'm proud to represent, the Labour Party, offers a vision of hope. We are determined that the politics of fear, the politics of hate, that politics that is about trying to divide people and divide communities will not win in these elections. So when people are thinking about how they cast their vote on Thursday, and I encourage everyone to engage with the democratic process again and use their vote to think about those really important issues.
Absolutely. I think that's the point. Use your vote.
Yes.
Use your vote. You know, people have fought and died for that right to be able to vote, and we've got an important vote coming up on Thursday. You can look across the media and see the different political parties that there are. What we represent here in Leicester, I think, is what Rory's just been talking about, and that's why I think it was important that we get a message out to our communities to make sure that they're aware the vote is on Thursday and that they're aware they get out and use that vote. Because don't waste it, and don't give space to these people that are trying to divide our communities and take us back 40, 50, 60 years when communities weren't welcome into this country. That's where we're going. And if we don't take the opportunity to stop that, then, you know, we'll have to look at ourselves and say, could I have done something else?
Yeah, think carefully about how you vote. Some people think European elections are not important. These European elections really do matter. They're not a free hit, so think seriously about how you vote. Look carefully at what the parties and the candidates are saying. Do those candidates really understand your local communities and your local issues? Will they speak up for your local area at that European level? That's what these elections are about. So I'd encourage people to think very carefully about it, and as you say, Kirk, make sure people do use their vote and encourage people to vote, to engage with the issues. There's only 2 days left of this campaign. I know people are tired after the local elections, but we should relish every democratic exercise and every election we have.
I'm not going to put you on the spot with
that means you are
with this kind of question, but how difficult will things be for the immediate period after Brexit if we come out of it with a bad deal or a no deal kind of scenario? Because I've read a lot of reports and I've seen the news and I've seen some of the, you know, the partisan stuff that's been played out and etc., you know, and some of it's quite scary, you know, as somebody that's got bills, as somebody that's got young kids, a young family, you know. I just feel a bit uneasy about the whole thing at the minute.
So I start from the point that I'm not sure there is a good Brexit deal. There's certainly no deal better than the deal we have now, which has been a full member of the European Union with full access to the single market, all those rights and entitlements that we have as members of the European Union. Now, the worst outcome is that we crash out with no deal and we move on to World Trade Organization rules which we have no real influence over. A no-deal Brexit would be catastrophic for our economy, it would be catastrophic for our communities, it would be a disaster for our National Health Service. 3 years ago, if people cast their minds back to the referendum campaign, nobody was talking about the fact we might be stockpiling medicines for the National Health Service. Nobody was talking about the fact we might be stockpiling food because there might be problems at the ports importing food, and we import a huge amount of our food from the European Union. Now, I've spent a lot of time over these past few months meeting with businesses, manufacturing businesses in all different sectors. Not one has endorsed the idea of a hard Brexit or a no-deal Brexit. In fact, quite the opposite. They are deeply worried about the prospects of a hard Brexit. It will be expensive. It will put jobs at risk. Particularly in the manufacturing sector, and our region's economy is more dependent on manufacturing than any other part of the country.
Absolutely. And manufacturing has played an important part for Leicester's heritage. It's been a huge place that this city has for all the textile industry, the shoe industry, the machinery industry. It's been massive. So yeah, it's an important issue. What do we think about Brexit locally as elected members? Have you had any challenges in your, you know, through your campaigns and in your communities? What have people said about Brexit? Or,
you know, I mean, I thank Rory for explaining Brexit, but there should be some simple version which people can understand.
Mm.
Many of people, I mean, I've used taxis. The taxi drivers, they ask me, what is Brexit? They don't know. They want to vote. People take, as I said in the beginning, that faith communities, they take vote very seriously.
Yeah.
They won't stay at home. They will vote. And before, the scaremongering was immigration, crime.
Yes, absolutely.
That on those, that's why the last referendum was for. So, single market. And if there are something simple which you can go on the doorstep and explain to people, that would be really helpful.
That's why I thought it was important that Rory
Yes.
came today, just to give that simple message and
Yes,
reassurance, about the party's position.
This is very, very important to remain.
Absolutely.
Because we live in a global village now, global world. And so how you can just work in
Cut the legs off.
Cut the legs off.
Yeah.
And business, education, like Rory said, human rights, whatever you name it, we need to support each other.
Totally. And you, Sue?
At local elections, this is when I found out about, it wasn't actually the campaigning and knocking on doors, it was the actual local elections, the day people were voting. And I had many discussions, and they talked about, well, I was a person to leave. Okay. And this is from our own communities.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, really? Yes. But I don't want do you think we'll have a referendum? Do you think we'll be able to vote again? Because, and I said, well, why did you vote to leave in the first place? And I'm just interested. Why did you do that? And I know it's everybody else's vote. They can do what they want, but I'm interested. And they said, and the attitude was, because we believe the lies.
I mean,
And that's what they said.
That bus is the one that sticks out.
We
for me,
believe the lies.
always.
It was the big red bus.
That bus with £350 million a week going to the NHS
Yes.
if we leave Europe.
Yes.
And with all the people in front of it. And then they denied being in
Yes.
front of the bus, and I said,
Yes.
I've seen it.
Exactly.
And this is why it's so important now, in my view, that however people voted in 2016, people should be able to have their say again and confirm whether they want to proceed with this or whether they would rather remain. We all now know so much more about what leaving would mean. We all have to have the humility to admit that. And people voted the way they did in good faith. It's no good for people to say people voted leave, they were stupid or whatever.
No,
That's
not at
completely wrong. And some people do that, and it makes me so angry because people voted leave in good faith, and that's I think why it's so important. People get to have their say again, and to revisit the question, knowing what we now know, the fact we're 3 years on, the fact that there were so many false promises made in 2016. It seems sensible and democratic to me to put the question back to the people once there's a credible leave deal there to put on a ballot paper alongside our current deal, which has of course been full members of the EU.
I was in a coffee shop and I was kind of earwigging the conversation next to me. They were talking about Brexit, and one guy was saying to the other guy, saying, I just don't get it, it's all rubbish and whatever, they're just taking us for granted and blah blah blah. And he said, the guy said, look, it's like buying a car. When I bought my car, I thought it was a good car, but now I've had it 2 years. I don't like it anymore. I want to change it because I don't like this and I didn't like that and I didn't understand that worked and that worked. So things change all the time. So, that was a real simple example. Absolutely. I thought it was quite clever when I was just earwigging in a coffee shop. And it's really important. This is a really important point for us, a major moment for us.
Most definitely.
And we need to get the vote out. This Thursday, 23rd of May, the elections. We're going to a break. We'll see you on the other side. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Ramadan Special on EAVA FM 102.5 FM. We were due to finish at 7, but I thought I couldn't lose the opportunity to grill our MEP Rory Palmer for a bit longer, and my co-councillor for Stonygate Wards came to the studio and he's joined us as well, Amina Talukta. So welcome, Amina.
Thank you, Kark. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Ramadan Kareem to everybody. And I would like to thank Radio Ramadan FM for doing this program. And it's bring the community together. And thank you. I would like to thank everybody for supporting us, our election time, all the Labour Party members, volunteers, and the community. It was huge success for us. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair.
That's the last party political bit you can have as well. So, Rory, your journey's been a fascinating journey. I can remember when I first started in the council in 2015. Yeah, it would have been 2015. And I spoke to you and you came to, you gave me a piece of paper one day. You probably don't remember. And it was about a program, a training program called Next Generation. And you said, Kirk, I think this will be really good for you. And I actually went on the program. It was fantastic. It was one of the best programs I've been on. Well,
I'm glad you listened to at least one bit of my advice, Kirk, over the years. That's good to know.
Yeah, it was a good program. So you tell us a bit about your journey, because you've been from, as I said, being a party political member to an elected member, and now you're representing the whole of the East Midlands in Europe. It's some journey, that is.
Yeah, and you know what? And I know it sounds a bit odd, but I don't really spend a great deal of time thinking about it in that sense. I've been very, very lucky, incredibly lucky, to have had some great opportunities and to have been able to serve the community here in Leicester. I was elected to the City Council in 2007.
Okay.
So that's 12 years ago now. And I was elected alongside a great team that year, people who are still on the council now, and I learned a huge amount very quickly. And I also made the decision, and this is the advice I always give to people when they're first elected. It's the advice I would give to those people who were elected for the first time 2 weeks ago, and that is, don't be nervous, don't be apprehensive. You've been elected to do things, to make things happen, and to speak up and to be heard. And that's what I did. And I got into the cabinet fairly quickly. And then in 2011, we had this big change in Leicester, because that was the time we moved away from the old council, cabinet and leader model. And the mayoral system was introduced. And I was re-elected to the council, and Sir Peter Soulsby, who was elected as the city mayor for the first time in 2011, asked me to be the deputy mayor, and that was an incredibly special time for me. It was a new role. No one had done it before. No one had been the city mayor before. No one had been the deputy city mayor before. So we had to set about creating this whole new system of how we were going to make decisions and how the council was going to run and how we were going to make sure that having an elected mayor was going to be a positive thing for our communities. I think it has been, but that was a fascinating time.
Because just on that elected model, obviously I wasn't part of the two models. So now we have an elected mayor, which is Sir Peter Soulsby, and before that we had a model where the group would decide its leader on an annual basis. Is that right? So I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
I've always been in and around, and Amina's always been in and around where we've had a city mayor. And we have an exec and we make decisions, and we have Labour group and we make decisions. I've not experienced the two. What's the pros and cons to both of them? Because I've heard stories on both sides.
Yeah, and I think there's advantages to both, and clearly different parts of the country operate on these different models. And I'm not one of these people who will go around saying every city should have a city mayor model. It's up to to each individual area which model they choose. But I think the city mayor model offers more stability. The mayor is elected for a 4-year term.
Yeah.
And you can plan on that basis. You can put your plans in place on that time frame. You're not always going to be looking over your shoulder to the next annual general meeting of the council or the ruling political group, because of course, as you say, a council leader has to be re-elected by the councillors every year, and that means by definition you are sort of going to be a bit more inward looking to the town hall, to City Hall, because you're going to always have half an eye on that annual general meeting every year, and making sure you secure enough support from the councillors. And it means that it's the councillors who are deciding who the leader, the focal point of the city is, and not the people. The mayor is elected by the people, accountable to the people of the city. A council leader ultimately is just accountable to the majority of councillors in their own political group.
Because there's some other cities, obviously, around the country that have an elected mayor system the same as us, and some still have the older system, which is a leader system. I think it's quite effective. I think, given what you've just said, the biggest advantage I would interpret from that is there's real time to get things done, and there's one person that potentially is accountable for it with the support of the elected members.
There's direct, visible accountability. You know, people know who is responsible for taking decisions. The city mayor appoints a team. Great to see you there, still part of that team as an assistant
thank you for
city
that.
mayor. You know, so people know who's accountable, who's making the decisions. Decisions are made much quicker under this model as well. Under the previous model, there was always the risk that decisions could get bogged down in the system, and it would take much longer to make things happen. And you have that clarity and that certainty as well. The mayor's elected for a 4-year term. The mayor gets elected, they know they're elected for 4 years. They know that you know, there isn't a council AGM, you know, 12 months down the line where they could be ousted or face some sort of challenge. And I like the idea that someone is elected to lead the city, to make decisions, to set that vision, and can then go back to the people of the city 4 years later to be held to account through the ballot box. And if people like what the mayor is doing, they can re-elect them. If they don't like it and they would rather have someone else lead the city, they have that choice.
And that's democracy.
That is.
And what do you think, Amir? You've experienced both the mayor and a leader system.
No, I have not experienced leader system, but I think the mayoral system is one a good. Just Rory told us about mayor is questionable. After 4 years, if you don't like him, you can change him, even regardless of your group, how powerful your group is. Like Labour group, we might be, huge majority in Leicester, but they could choose independent mayor. So I think
The
mayoral system public could choose independent mayor.
Yeah.
If they don't like the present mayor, or if after 4 years, what we're doing in Leicester, if they don't like it, they can change it. It's a democracy. I like it.
And what do you both think are the biggest challenges for local government going forward?
Well, I was a councillor for 10 years. I was deputy mayor for 6 years. And in that time, without question, the biggest challenge is the scale of the budget cuts, the austerity, the cuts that central government, the Conservative government in Westminster have brought about. It is disproportionate, it is unfair, it's hitting the poorest areas the hardest. It's making it an impossible job, I think, for councillors at the moment. You're facing impossible decisions, decisions that affect people every day. You hear people at election time saying the council should, just spend the reserve, spend all the cash that's in the bank to keep the services going. Well, that's happened. The reserves are almost gone. In Leicester, we set in place a strategy 6 years ago in response to those cuts, where we built up a special reserve to try to cushion the blow and protect services for longer. But that special reserve is fast running out, as you will know.
Absolutely.
The scale and pace of these cuts has been unprecedented. It will do lasting damage to local government, to local services. So I think that's one big challenge. I think the second big challenge, if you like, facing councils, not just Leicester, but right across the country and right across the East Midlands region that I represent, is housing. People have to have a safe, decent, affordable place to live. And we know there's an acute shortage because the government have made it so difficult for councils to build homes for rent. We know that because of the economic circumstances, we were just talking about Brexit a few minutes ago, the uncertainty of Brexit means that developers are not investing as much in building homes. We have an acute housing crisis in this country. We have a lot of hidden homelessness. We have people, families living 6, 7, 8 to a room. Kids can't do their homework. They're living in damp, horrible conditions here in our city and other cities as well. We've got to make it easier for councils to build homes. We've got to get the funding in to do that, and we've got to make sure everyone has the dignity of a decent home.
And right to buy as well is another.
Yeah, absolutely. The right to buy policy is one of those many barriers to councils who want to keep the stock and the number of affordable social homes in place for people.
So if you look at our ward in particular, Amrin, this is Stonygate here, and it's got a large Muslim population within it. It's got 3 Muslim councillors. How do we go about engaging with our communities better to bring them into the democratic process so they can hold us to account? I know we have elections and we go through elections. We've just done that. We've got another 4-year term. But through our commitments that we were talking to people on the doorstep about was bringing the communities back into play, making things more democratic, giving them a bigger voice and a bigger say. The Muslim community in the city is a big community, all across the city, not just in this area. And I think traditionally they've always wedded to politics. Like Manjula said, they will use their vote. And we need to make sure that we're engaging with them properly, we're doing the right things for them and bringing them in. How can we do that better?
That's a really good question. And I think all our communities in Leicester are engaged and want to make sure their voice is heard with the council, with their members of parliament, with the city mayor, hopefully with their MEPs as well. And actually plenty of local people do contact me as the MEP about lots of different issues. And that's great. I mean, I don't think there's an easy answer, Kirk, to that question. I think a lot of it is about the sort of day-to-day and making sure that as elected representatives we're visible, we're active in communities. I think it's really important that we think about how we engage young people. So young people are growing up with that sense of active citizenship and a notion of taking an active interest in their community.
Yeah, that's important.
I think social media is important in that. Facebook, Twitter, which we're all active on, and people can contact us and engage with us in those ways. But I also think it's about making sure that politics locally isn't just something that happens every 4 years through the ballot box. It's happening every day, every week, that we are listening to people, listening to their concerns and responding and delivering the results, because you'll have to go back to local people in 4 years' time and to talk about what you've done and the fact that you will hopefully have delivered on what people asked for and demanded of you. But I think this is a fascinating time for politics at every level. I can't remember a time when we're out there in communities on the doorstep have been so interested in national politics, in international politics, and indeed local politics as well. We saw that in this part of the city with a number of people who voted in the local elections. So there's a huge positive there to build on. But I'd be thinking about how do we keep young people engaged? How do we make sure that next generation grows up with a sense of active citizenship, thinking and knowing they can make a difference and that politics is a positive thing. And it's actually about making sure that mainstream politics and political parties that believe in democracy, that believe in equality and fairness and diversity and bringing people together are seen as the route to do that.
No, so there's an important point you made there. I mean, when we were doing our campaign, but not just our campaign, throughout the 4-year period that we're here as elected members, we go out, we speak to people, not just our members, just general public, the community groups, the faith groups, etc., etc. And there has been a sea change, I think, in terms of the way people are looking and viewing politics. And it's an important point, even the particular community. I'm going to ask
I just wanted to mention, Kark, in saying politics about Muslim community or Stonygate, I think our kids are very involved in politics. You see in the campaigning time, they are so involved. But I would ask them to get involved, get engaged with the party they like. And if they think local representative, they need to be seen our local MPs here or local MPs here, we are here as well. If they call us to or send us an email or text, we will answer them. We'll let them have the route to how to go there and get involved.
Do you think there's differences? So you're from the Bangladeshi community, and when we were doing our work and when we work with that community, they're quite engaging. They want to get involved. They want to come out and help and support. You know, what have you been doing in that community?
Bangladeshi community is very engaged in politics here and abroad as well.
Abroad as well.
Yes,
Is that where it comes from?
So it's come from our root, you know.
Okay.
So we are the country, we got independence in 1971, and we are politically very, concerned. We see what's going on in here, Leicester. So a lot of people is member of, the party I do as well. So they know the politics, they can get engaged, and you've seen that on campaigning time, how they get engaged. They are coming, they're knocking doors every day, every hour, and so they're involved.
Yeah,
they're involved. They're into the road. So they just have to, new generation to get engaged with the political party.
No, that's a good point. If there was one thing you could have changed through your term, Rory, of being an elected member and a senior member of the system here in the city, what would you look back on and say, well, I might have done that differently?
Wow, that's a really difficult question. I'd like to think that during my time, I made some good decisions. What would I do differently, or what would I look back on
and not necessarily just a decision, just maybe around the whole sphere of things, something you've seen in the city with different eyes. Now you've got that more global European look, that you look at Leicester and you've seen other cities around Europe and think, that would work really well here.
You've really stumped me there, Kirk. And, I suppose, I always sort of took the view that when I was a deputy mayor, there was sort of two parts to the role. There was a part which was just, working with Peter as the city mayor and the wider team and just doing our best in really difficult circumstances with the scale of cuts to make sure the core services the council was providing, does provide, were, in the eyes of ordinary citizens and people of the city, those services were good, they were decent, they were reliable, people would have confidence in them. Those core services were ticking along, whether it's libraries, community centres, street cleaning, road repairs, and I think we did a good job of that. I think that's been borne out in election results over the last two cycles or so. I also tried to do some different things and to use the role that I had to explore some key issues in a bit more detail. So I spent a lot of time looking at the issue of child poverty through the Child Poverty Commission that I set up. And I suppose on reflection, that was a fascinating piece of work. We brought people together, we explored that issue in detail, and we brought forward some important recommendations, many of which have been implemented, and I would like to think are making a difference. I suppose thinking, I think there's perhaps more we could have done to engage the business community in some of those issues. The business community are engaged. They tend to be engaged on issues you'd expect them to be engaged on: transport, infrastructure, the availability of premises for different businesses. I'd like to see the business community become more interested in, some of those social issues, education, opportunities for our children, issues of poverty, housing, homelessness, skills. Some businesses are really good. They're engaged in all those things. They're mindful of the fact that as a business in the city, they have a responsibility on those issues. But I think some businesses could do a little bit more. But it's no good just me saying that. We've got to make it easier. People are busy who run businesses. We've got to make it easier. I don't think the existing structures, the LEP, for example, lends itself to that. So I would have liked to have done more on that. Now the current team, you might be doing that. You might have great plans for that.
We're looking at different things, definitely.
But I think that was I've always felt to be a little bit of a gap. I always felt we could do more to get some of the bigger businesses engaged in some of those social issues, and to perhaps encourage them to appreciate that they have a stake in those issues.
Absolutely. And just from a Brexit point of view, or to the vote coming up this week. What do you take from Leicester? What have you took from Leicester to Europe that you've used as examples to say, you know, I come from a wonderful city with some great communities.
Lots of things.
And this is brilliant for me to share with you.
I'm always banging the drum for Leicester in the European Parliament. In fact, some of my European Parliament colleagues from other member states are thoroughly fed up of hearing about Leicester. But look, you know, it won't surprise anyone listening, I suspect, that, you know, the thing I talk about is our diversity, is the fact that we have communities here from every corner of the world, and those communities live side by side. As I said earlier, we celebrate together, we celebrate Eid together, we celebrate Diwali, Navratri, Vaisakhi, Hanukkah. You know, our faith calendar in Leicester is busy and exciting, and it's busy and exciting because all those festivals are shared across many different people. I love the fact that my four-year-old daughter already knows what Eid is, knows what Diwali is, knows what Vaisakhi is, knows what Hanukkah is, and has been to many of those celebrations already. That is such a special thing. We sometimes take it for granted, I think, in Leicester.
Absolutely. I think
but we
that's
shouldn't.
A really important point.
And I talk about that in the European Parliament all the time, and it's a positive thing. And again, as I said earlier, when some of our communities have faced difficulty or misfortune, perhaps a bad thing has happened in part of the world that matters a great deal to some of our communities, we stand shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
And we offer compassion and solidarity and support.
And we've done that here at St Philip's, at the mosque across the road from St Philip's after the New Zealand tragedy.
Of course.
And I read a report it was probably about 24 hours after the shooting, and what I was really, really struck by was that the Sikh community out in New Zealand reached out to the Muslim community there and were offering to wash bodies and do the washing for the dead and provide food for the families that were in traumatic states and etc. And to see that here, and I said it in council actually, I said one of the things that have filled me with joy in such a tragic thing is I felt if something like this, God forbid, was to happen in Leicester, I feel the communities would pull together. I feel there's enough around to make a real bad situation better for the many residents and the community of the city. And I think we have that here. And I think that's something we should be proud of. And that's why, you know, it's really important that people believe in that as well.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm so proud to talk about that at the European level and to be a proud ambassador for our city in the European Parliament, and to make sure that my European Parliament colleagues from the other 27 member states know about Leicester, understand about our city, will come and visit Leicester and to see what we have to offer. It's a great city.
We've got 1 minute, Amina. You've got 20 seconds to sum up, and then I'm going to give
Thank
Rory the last 30
Ramadan
seconds.
time to everybody. 23rd of May, there is a European election. Everyone should vote for the election, and I think Rory was an excellent MEP for Leicester East Midland.
He's a good candidate.
He's a good candidate as well. Thank you.
And you, Rory?
Let me close just by wishing everyone, you know, my best regards and best wishes for Ramadan. I wish everyone who's observing Ramadan peaceful, blessed time. So from my family to the families of the listeners and all those across Leicester observing Ramadan, Ramadan Kareem.
Thank you for that. And we'll be back next week. I'll be back with another programme discussing different things. Thank you for joining us today, and Assalamu alaikum.
Carry on.